Okay, what's the next step? The next step is just realizing that there's going to be some things that you're going to have to do to that's really further analysis because now we're going to be encountering some commas that don't function like other commas. So in this case, the sentence reads, Manuel, we've seen this before, leaning against the barrier, watching the bull, waved his hand and the gypsy ran out, preceding his breeze-blown cape, a red, glossy fabric around his pudgy neck. And since we've seen this before, I won't spend a lot of time with it, but it looks like, Manuel waves his hand and, then the gypsy runs out. And we saw this before in a different video, kind of indicating that, sometimes sentences are not just complex, but they're compound. In this case, Manuel does one thing, and then there's another subject in the base clause, and the gypsy ran out. It could be true that Manuel waved his hand and the gypsy ran out. In the past, we would do something like this where we would just almost mindlessly just circle the marks of punctuation. I'm going to do that now because you can still do that to a degree, but at some point you have to kind of check yourself and say, is it true though, like that all these are just going to get circled red because they're all the same kinds of commas? Like this one might even like immediately, I don't know, come into question just because it's so close to the other one. But part of the process is, you know, who is it that's leaning against the barrier? And then when you see this mark of punctuation here and you see this mark of punctuation here, uh, almost immediately you would be like, well, it's Manuel. Manuel is leaning against the barrier. He's so close. This free modifier is so close to Manuel that it seems really obvious that this free modifier is modifying Manuel. Same thing with watching the bull. It modifies Manuel. Who's watching the bull? It's Manuel. Here's the rest of our base clause, and then in terms of the next free modifier, it's between this mark of punctuation and this mark of punctuation. Preceding is breeze-blown cape. In this case, this doesn't go back and modify Manuel, but it modifies the gypsy. It's the closest noun. I mean, the gypsy is only 1, 2, 3 words away from this free modifier. So it seems really obvious that the gypsy in the base clause is the one with the cape. And then, here's where the analysis comes in. And if you said to yourself, well, a red versus, all right, well, who is it with the red glossy fabric around his pudgy neck? You might say to yourself, well, this feels like red and glossy both modify the fabric. All in all, the whole free modifier modifies the cape, but a red, glossy fabric means that something has changed, and it's this comma right here. So I know you can't always do this, but in Nearpod Draughts you can do it. And in this case, this comma right here it's functioning differently. It's part of a list. Red and glossy are adjectives that modify the fabric. We've got a short 2-item list separated by a listy comma that modifies fabric. And then what ends up happening, while we try not to highlight other marks of punctuation, this green mark of punctuation that gets boxed in, it's going to also get highlighted as a free modifier, part of the free modifier. Because what we get is an entire free modifier with a comma in it that, in this case, modifies the cape. So this one modifies the cape. So that's the next step in the analysis. It's not always easy, but it is part of the process. So in this case, it looks like there's our base clause. We've got a medial position free modifier here that interrupts the base clause, and we've got another one as well. Preceding is breeze blown cape, modifies the gypsy, which is part of the base clause. And then a red glossy fabric around his pudgy neck. It's an entire free modifier. There's not two free modifiers here. This comma is part of one single free modifier. So, and it modifies a level 2. So in this case, this final position free modifier with the listy comma in it is a level 3. So we got a 1, 2 slash 2 slash 2, 3. It's a highly complex sentence, but that's the direction we're going to be going. So that's a listy comma. And notice the rules have changed up here in terms of the steps. So now you're circling or boxing in marks of punctuation. I'm going to be honest, most of them are going to get circled. Most of them are going to be red. But there are going to be times, and you have to kind of watch out, some of them are going to be boxed in. And you're going to see that on the next batch of Google Doc sentences. Most of them are going to get circled, but there are tricky ones that are going to get boxed in or colored green.